In the 1970s, California was a wonderful place to live. There were many sunny days, and families enjoyed picnics and playing in the parks. New homes were being built, and everyone felt safe and happy in their growing communities. One quiet night, everything changed. In a cozy neighborhood, a family was fast asleep when they heard a noise. Someone had broken into their house. This person was very quiet and very fast. He wore a mask, and the family couldn't see his face. He scared them and took their things. This was the first time the East Area Rapist struck. The next day, the family told their neighbors and the police about what happened. Everyone was shocked and scared. People used to leave their doors unlocked, but now they started locking them. Some even added extra locks and lights around their homes. The police began their investigation right away. They tried to find clues and asked people if they saw anything strange. But the attacker was very careful and didn't leave many clues behind. The police were determined to catch him, but it wasn't easy. As more families heard about the attack, fear spread through the community. People worried that the East Area Rapist might come back. They stayed inside at night and watched out for anything suspicious. With each passing day, the neighborhood that once felt so safe was now filled with fear and uncertainty. But everyone hoped that the police would catch the bad guys soon and bring peace back to their community. And so began the story of the East Area Rapist, a story that would haunt California for many years to come. After the first break-in, the East Area Rapist struck again. He didn't just frighten people, he hurt them too. He would break into homes, usually at night when people were asleep. He was quiet and careful, making sure not to wake anyone until he was ready to attack. He wore a mask so no one could see his face. He tied up his victims and stole things from their homes. As the attacks continued, the police started to notice some similarities. They realized that the East Area Rapist had a certain way of doing things. This way of behaving is called a modus operandi, or MO for short. Here are some things the police noticed. He would usually strike at night when it was dark and people were asleep. He often entered through windows or doors that were left open or unlocked. He sometimes looked at the house days before the attack to learn the family's routine. He always wore a mask to hide his face and gloves to avoid leaving fingerprints. He was very controlling and tried to scare his victims into keeping quiet. These patterns helped the police understand it was the same person committing these terrible crimes, even though he attacked in different neighborhoods. When news of the early attacks spread, people became very scared. Newspapers and TV stations started covering the story. Reporters named him the East Area Rapist because he attacked in the eastern part of the city. The stories in the news made everyone very nervous. Parents began to worry even more about their children's safety. Police advised everyone to lock their doors and windows and to be extra careful, especially at night. People in the community started looking out for each other. Neighbors formed watch groups and patrolled the streets at night. They wanted to keep their families safe and catch the East Area Rapist if they could. Some families even bought new locks and security systems to protect their homes. The fear of another attack made everyone very cautious. As the attacks continued, the police worked harder to catch the East Area Rapist. They gathered more clues and talked to more people. They hoped that someone would see something that could help them stop him. Even though everyone was scared, they worked together and supported each other. The community became stronger as they faced this terrible danger. But the East Area Rapist was still out there, and the police knew they had to find him before he hurt anyone else. This was just the beginning of a long and difficult investigation that would take many years and the hard work of many people. But the police and the community were determined to stop the East Area Rapist and bring peace back to their homes. As time went on, the East Area Rapist became even more dangerous. He didn't only break into homes and hurt people. He started committing even more violent crimes. What began as terrifying break-ins and rapes soon escalated to murder. The fear in the community grew as people realized this criminal could do even worse things. One case that really scared everyone was the murder of a young couple. They were found in their home, and it was clear that the East Area Rapist had been there. This was a big story in the news, and it made everyone even more afraid. Another high-profile case involved a family with children. The East Area Rapist attacked late at night, and the whole family was hurt. This case was especially sad because it showed that no one was safe, not even the children. These high-profile cases were talked about on TV, in newspapers, and by everyone in the neighborhood. The stories made people realize how serious the danger was, and that the East Area Rapist was becoming more violent. One family, the Johnsons, shared their story. One night, they woke up to find the East Area Rapist in their home. He tied up the parents and hurt them while the children were forced to watch. The Johnsons never felt safe in their home again. They moved to a new house and tried to start over, but the memories of that night stayed with them. Another victim, a woman named Sarah, shared how she was attacked while she was alone at home. She was very brave and tried to fight back, but the East Area Rapist overpowered her. Even though she was scared, she called the police as soon as she could. Her bravery helped the police gather more clues about the East Area Rapist methods. Many families shared similar stories of fear and pain. Each story was heartbreaking and showed how much the East Area Rapist had hurt the community. Hearing these personal stories made people even more determined to help the police catch him. Despite their fear and sadness, the victims and their families showed great courage. They spoke out to warn others and to encourage more people to come forward with information. Their bravery inspired the community to stand up against the terror. As the East Area Rapist crimes became more violent and widespread, the community banded together even more. People attended town meetings to discuss safety measures and learn how to protect their homes. Neighbors exchanged contact information and agreed to watch out for one another, especially during the night. Neighborhood watch groups became more organized and focused. Volunteers patrolled the streets and reported anything suspicious to the police. The community was determined to do everything possible to prevent another attack and to support the ongoing investigation. The police, now more equipped with clues from new and previous attacks, intensified their efforts. They worked tirelessly, analyzing every piece of evidence and developing new strategies to catch the criminal. The families of the victims, alongside the entire community, hoped that their efforts would soon bring an end to the terror. Though the fear was great, the strength and unity of the people grew even greater. The community's resilience, along with the relentless work of law enforcement, marked a crucial stage in the long battle against the East Area Rapist. This chapter of heightened fear and violence served as a stark reminder of the dangers they faced. But it also showed the strength and bravery of the victims, their families, and the entire community. While the terror of the East Area Rapist escalated, so did the resolve of those he tormented. They were more vigilant, more prepared, and more united than ever before. Though the nights were filled with fear, the days were filled with hope. The police were determined, and the community's support was unwavering. People believed that with enough effort and cooperation, the East Area Rapist could be stopped. The stories of those who suffered the most served as a powerful reminder of why they needed to keep fighting. Their courage inspired others to be vigilant and to never give up on the hope for justice and safety. Together, they all held onto a shared hope that one day, the terror would end and peace would return to their homes and hearts. The East Area Rapist's attacks left the community in a state of constant fear. People were scared to go to sleep at night, worried they might become the next victims. Every noise, shadow, or stranger filled them with suspicion. They began to feel paranoid, always looking over their shoulders and wondering if they were being watched. Because of the fear, people started changing their daily routines. They no longer felt safe doing the things they used to enjoy. People made sure all doors and windows were locked and even added extra locks and bars for more protection. Families installed bright outdoor lights to keep their homes well lit, hoping it would scare away the attacker. Instead of walking alone, people started walking in groups or pairs, especially at night. Neighbors took turns patrolling the streets at night. They stayed in touch to report any suspicious activity. Some families invested in alarm systems that would alert them and the police if someone tried to break into their home. These changes made people feel a little safer, but the fear was always there. Everyone knew they had to be extra careful. Survivors and their families shared their stories to help others understand the seriousness of the situation. Here are a few of their stories. Mary was a mother of 2 children. One night, they woke up to find the East Area Rapist in their home. Mary did her best to protect her kids, but they were all very scared. After the attack, Mary and her family found it hard to sleep at night. They constantly checked the locks on their doors and windows. Mary spoke to her neighbors, sharing her experience and encouraging them to stay vigilant. Despite her fear, she remained strong for her children. John was a teenager when his family's home was broken into. The East Area Rapist attacked while they were all asleep. The trauma of that night stayed with John for years. He often had nightmares and found it hard to trust strangers. His family decided to move to a different neighborhood, hoping it would help them heal. The Parker family lived in a quiet neighborhood and never thought something like this could happen to them. One night, the rapist broke into their home. The parents were tied up, and their children were terrified. The community came together to support the Parker family, offering meals, comfort, and a listening ear. Despite the fear, the Parkers found strength in the kindness of their neighbors. Even though the community was on edge, they grew closer and more supportive of each other. People shared tips on staying safe and looked out for one another. Simple acts of kindness, like checking in on a neighbor or walking a friend home, became common. The psychological impact of the attacks was profound, but so was the community's resilience. They refused to let fear control their lives completely. By sticking together and staying vigilant, they showed that they could stand strong against the terror brought by the East Area Rapist. This sense of unity gave everyone hope that, one day, the fear would end and peace would return to their community. They believed that by working together, they could overcome the nightmare they were living through. Despite the East Area Rapist's attempts to instill terror, the community's bond grew stronger. They supported each other through the tough times, creating a sense of togetherness that was stronger than ever before. As the police continued their investigation, the community held on to hope. They believed that one day, the East Area Rapist would be caught and brought to justice. Their hope was fueled by the bravery of the survivors and the relentless efforts of the law enforcement officers working day and night to solve the case. Children still played in the parks during the day, and families still gathered for neighborhood events, albeit more cautiously. Life tried to go on as normally as possible, with an underlying promise that they would not let fear win. They took every measure to protect themselves, but also to continue living their lives. The stories of survival and resilience became a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there is light. The community's strong spirit and determination to look out for one another became the foundation upon which they would build a safer future, hoping for the day when the East Area Rapist would be no more than a dark memory. When the first attacks by the East Area Rapist happened, local police started working right away. They wanted to capture this dangerous person quickly. The police went to the crime scenes to look for clues, like footprints or fingerprints. They talked to the victims and neighbors to find out if anyone saw or heard something unusual. The police also looked at other crimes in nearby areas to see if they could find a pattern. They hoped to catch the rapist before he hurt anyone else. But he was very clever, and it was not easy to find him. As the attacks continued, it became clear that the police needed more help. They decided to form special task forces, which are groups of police officers who focus only on solving one big case. These task forces included detectives, crime scene experts, and other specialists. Different police departments from nearby cities started to work together. They shared information and clues they gathered from different crime scenes. This teamwork was important because it allowed them to piece together a bigger picture of the rapist's actions. The detectives faced many challenges in their search for the East Area Rapist. Here are some of the main difficulties they encountered. In the 1970s, police did not have the advanced technology we have today. There were no DNA tests to identify suspects, and the equipment for gathering evidence was not as good. Detectives had to rely more on witnesses and physical clues, which were often hard to find. Sharing information between different police departments was difficult. Without computers and the internet, they had to use phone calls, letters, and face-to-face meetings. This made it harder and slower to share important details about the cases, which sometimes led to delays in the investigation. The East Area Rapist changed the way he committed his crimes. He was always looking for new ways to avoid getting caught. This made it challenging for detectives to predict his next move. The community's fear and panic made it difficult for people to remember details or stay calm during questioning. Everyone was on edge, which sometimes led to false leads or confusion. The East Area Rapist attacked in many different neighborhoods. This made it hard for detectives to be everywhere at once. It was almost like trying to catch a ghost. Despite all these challenges, the detectives and police officers never gave up. They continued to work tirelessly, visiting crime scenes, interviewing witnesses, and gathering every piece of evidence they could find. They held meetings to discuss their findings and brainstorm new ways to catch the rapist. They even brought in experts from other fields, like psychologists, who tried to create a profile of the rapist. They hoped this profile would help them understand his behavior and predict when and where he might strike next. The police also involved the community, asking people to report anything suspicious, no matter how small it seemed. They believed that with everyone's help, they would eventually find the clue they needed to catch the East Area Rapist. While the road was long and difficult, the determination of the detectives and their commitment to protecting their community shone brightly. They worked day and night, driven by the hope of bringing peace back to the community. Their hard work and dedication were crucial in the fight against the East Area Rapist, even if progress was slow. While the East Area Rapist was careful and always seemed one step ahead, the detectives did have some small breakthroughs. Every bit of evidence they found, no matter how small, was a step closer to catching him. They discovered patterns in how he chose his victims and the times he preferred to attack. The community continued to support law enforcement. People remained vigilant, reported suspicious activities, and provided tips. Though they were scared, they knew their cooperation was essential to capturing the criminal. The story of the early investigations shows the importance of persistence. The detectives faced many setbacks and challenges, but they never gave up. They stayed focused on their mission to protect the community and bring the East Area Rapist to justice. As we move forward in the story, we will see how this persistence, combined with new technology and methods, eventually helped solve the case. But for now, it's important to remember the bravery and dedication of those early investigators who worked tirelessly to keep their community safe. Back in the 1970s and 1980s, forensic science was not as advanced as it is today. Detectives had to rely on basic tools and methods to solve crimes. They didn't have DNA tests, powerful computers, or high-tech gadgets. Here are some of the main tools they used. Detectives could dust surfaces for fingerprints left by the criminal. If they found a match in their files, they could identify the suspect. They looked for shoe prints at crime scenes to see if the same person left them. Things like hair, fibers from clothes, and even bits of dirt could sometimes tell detectives where the criminal had been. Talking to people who saw or heard something unusual was very important. Witnesses could provide descriptions and other helpful information. Even with limited technology, detectives were clever and hardworking. They used a variety of tools and techniques to try to catch the East Area Rapist. They asked witnesses to describe the rapist so a sketch artist could draw his picture. They shared these sketches with the public, hoping someone would recognize him. Detectives would sometimes watch certain areas where they thought the rapist might strike again. They stayed hidden, hoping to catch him in the act. Experts tried to create a psychological profile of the rapist to understand his behavior and predict his next move. Detectives looked for patterns in the rapist's attacks, such as the times he struck and how he entered homes. They hoped these patterns would help them figure out where he might go next. While detectives worked hard, they faced many obstacles and setbacks. Here are some of the biggest challenges they encountered. Without DNA testing, it was hard to prove who the criminal was. DNA testing, which is very common today, wasn't available, so they couldn't use it to identify the rapist from things like hair or saliva. The East Area Rapist was very clever and often changed his methods. This made it difficult for detectives to predict his next moves. Evidence was often scattered across many crime scenes, which were far apart. Detectives had to travel long distances and coordinate with different police departments, adding time and complexity to the investigation. Fearful communities sometimes hesitated to come forward with information. People were scared of the rapist and worried about their safety, so they might keep quiet even if they saw something important. Detectives sometimes followed false leads, which wasted time and resources. Every time they got new information, they had to check it out carefully to make sure it was not a dead end. Despite these obstacles, the detectives never gave up. They continued to gather evidence, follow leads, and work with the community. Their dedication kept the investigation moving forward, even when progress was slow and difficult. The technology of the 1970s and 1980s had its limits, but it laid the foundation for future breakthroughs. The hard work and persistence of the detectives, combined with advancements in forensic science, would eventually help solve the case. The community's hope and support also played a crucial role in keeping the detectives motivated. Everyone believed that one day, the advancements in science and the relentless efforts of law enforcement would bring the East Area Rapist to justice. As the years went by, new technologies and methods would emerge that could help solve old cases. But for now, the detectives focused on doing the best they could with the tools they had, knowing that every clue brought them one step closer to ending the terror. Their story is one of determination, courage, and the belief that no matter the obstacles, justice could still be achieved. Be sure to come back tomorrow. For the next part of this story, we upload true stories every day. See you tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment down.